Many more were in tents. Now, if you see tents in Gaza, that means that either the entire extended family's homes were all destroyed, or that they're full. And I don't mean full by Western standards, you know, your brother-in-law moves in and it seems pretty full just with that one extra person. That means like 17, 20, 25 people are trying to live in one house.
No justice,
no peace, emissions must cease.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. This week, in addition to killing an Islamic Jihad commander and his wife, Israeli jets killed over 30 people in Gaza in their latest bombing raids. Included in that total on November 13th were 8 people, all of the same family. These are the names and ages of the people in that family. Note that most were children. 13 more in that family were injured. Has any presidential candidate criticized Israel for this recent killing spree? I don't mean the usual meaningless welcome of a ceasefire. I mean criticism of the Israeli government for the Gaza siege, the inhuman conditions in Gaza, and for mounting this latest bloodbath. In Turkey, James Le Mesurier was found dead outside his home. He had helped turn Syrian volunteers into a professional rescue service for those buried under the rubble by Russian bombs. It might have been a suicide. One cannot understand his act, but certainly we can understand his despair. The people he tried to save are being slowly ground down by tyrants Assad, Putin, and Erdogan. On Veterans Day, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy tweeted, 1% of Americans are protecting the other 99%. This means many Americans have never witnessed firsthand a military culture that values honor, truth-telling, and a radical commitment to team. That's a shame because it's one of the best things about America. In a reply, Eric Karanko tweeted, hey, I'm your constituent. I'm an Afghan combat vet. There is no honor in our wars. My comrades died and killed for the rich to profit. Do not ever speak of honor in the military. A harsh message, perhaps, directed at leaders who send troops to unjust wars. In Bolivia, the right wing has tried to violently seize power. A Bible-thumping senator has declared herself president. Yet there is popular resistance. There was a very interesting debate on Democracy Now! About Bolivia. We'll show a small part.
Let's begin in Bolivia with Pablo Salón. Do you describe what happened as a coup?
I think it's very complicated to say it's a coup, because I think there was a popular rebellion, because this issue started in 2016 when Evo Morales didn't recognize the result of a referendum that said that he couldn't run for a new re-election. If he would have respected that referendum, he would have finished his third term as probably the best president in Bolivia. But he didn't do that. He forced that the Constitutional Tribunal did a statement saying that it was a human right to run for new elections. And then we have the elections of the 20th of October, where there was definitely fraud. We have so many evidences here, so many reports from different institutions, not only OAS saying it, that of course the population went to the streets, it was massive. And it has lasted for 20 days. So to say this is a coup d'etat planned by the White House, the right-wing forces, fascist forces, I think it's to make a caricature of what is really happening.
A coup has a simple and straightforward definition. It's the unconstitutional removal of a sitting president before that president's term in office is up. And in the case of Bolivia, Evo Morales is the elected president. His term isn't due up until January 21st of 2020. And in this case, on Sunday, you have the lead commander of the Bolivian armed forces directly intervening in ordering Evo out of office. So that's a coup, and I think that's pretty straightforward. That shouldn't be controversial. What makes this coup particularly dangerous is that it is being supported by the most racist and reactionary elements in Bolivian society. Now, as well as by the United States. Now, all of that being said, the overall political situation in Bolivia is complex. All of the opposition is not the same. The opposition is not monolithic. There are opposition protesters who are much more progressive. Many indigenous groups, working class Bolivians, have become very disillusioned with Evo's government and have turned against it.
To get to the whole video, go to rpm.world and click on the Bolivian Crisis button. There you'll see a link to the Democracy Now! Video and to a host of articles about Bolivia. Whatever you think about the path Evo Morales has taken in recent years, we clearly need to support resistance to another vile Bolsonaro-like regime in Latin America. Now in Keene, New Hampshire, the father of Rachel Corrie speaks at a Tree of Life event.
That's my wife. And I'm pretty proud of it. I'm a little ashamed of myself, however. So I've got a couple of observations, or an observation and a confession to make here. The observation, I love looking at that picture, and I left it up there for a long time, because that's Laura Gordon sitting on Ahmed's lap down in the southern tip of the Strip in Rafah. And Laura was in Israel on Birthright Israel as an 18-year-old when Rachel was killed, and she called her dad and said, "I'm going down to where that American girl was killed." You imagine this nice Jewish father getting a call from his daughter that's off overseeing Israel, and she's just going into the Gaza Strip. She stayed down there later than any other Westerner was there in 2003. Learned Arabic and is total solidarity with those people, as you can see with her mother figure there. So that's the observation. The other thing is what we all know if we were watching, but Cindy does not know because she trusts me and didn't turn around. I put up the wrong, she's grimacing at me now. I put up the disappearing map, the map of disappearing Israel up there, and of course she was talking about places around there, and I couldn't point to them or do anything but mess up the screen. So that takes me, and we'll straighten that out. We'll get it right by the 9th day of our talks, but I'll get that straightened out. But that does bring up a topic that I sort of want to just do a shout out here. So can anybody tell me who the name of the Native American group that was around Keene in the beginning? I'm getting a lot of different things. I looked something up and I thought it was something like, I'm trying to find it here. Okay. Abenaki? Yeah, I was thinking Sokoki or something was another one that I found online. But anyway, what we're talking about is settler colonialism. A lot of other things in here, but when we talk about Israel-Palestine, we're talking about settler colonialism. And if you go back to the shrinking Palestine that I showed there, I want to show you another slide. You might recognize this, and guess what it is? That's the United States. And those are, you can see into the different colors there, that's where the Native Americans now have their land. So I just want to recognize that we are on somebody else's land. Of course, 500 years ago, that whole map would have been orange, and we wouldn't have anything to do with it. So I don't want to thank Native Americans, because if somebody stole my car, I wouldn't want them to thank me afterwards. But I acknowledge that, and I think we need to go on here. So in 2009, Cindy and I were on our third of 5 trips to the Gaza Strip, and this one, whoops, gonna copy Hani here. This one was with Code Pink. How many of you know who Code Pink is? Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we were there, and I was going along. It's kind of like the men's aid. Cindy's church used to have a ladies' aid. We were kind of the men's aid to the Code Pink. It was fantastic. There were about 6 or 7 of us, and I think it was on March 8th. It's International Women's Day of 2009. The women were doing whatever it is women do when they all get alone together. And the men went separately to several different groups. But we ended up in a small group of young people, probably under the age of 30, that were doing a lot of reporting, television and radio reporting. And they were the ones, in 2009, remember the destruction that was going on. They were on top of the roof. They had the satellite upfeed to Al Jazeera, and they were the ones that got the news out. And they were angry at us. It was interesting in our group, but to take you back to that time, in what the Israelis called cast lead, the attack on the Palestinian area in the Gaza Strip. During that time, there were 1,342 Palestinians killed and 13 Israelis. Wounded was more than 5,300 Palestinians, 197 Israelis. Homes destroyed, 3,500 or more. Of course, none for Israel. Buildings destroyed, 1,200 or more. Greenhouses, 80. Homeless, tens of thousands. And of course, none for the Israelis on the other side of it. So that gives you a picture of what these people had just, well, it doesn't give you a picture of what they were just undergoing. This is more of a picture. This is just east of Gaza City, and it's looking toward Israel. I pointed that camera to the north. You would have seen the same sort of thing. To the south, it was kilometers of destruction that looked like this. Now, people were still trying to live in some of these houses, and that one, my memory is, there was a man underneath that trying to live in it with the collapsed side of that house. Many more were in tents. Now, if you see tents in Gaza, that means that either the entire extended family's homes were all destroyed, or that they're full. And I don't mean full by Western standards. You know, your brother-in-law moves in and it seems pretty full just with that one extra person. That means like 17, 20, 25 people are trying to live in one house before they get into the UN tents. So that's what we were seeing there, that sort of wholesale destruction. And we had about 4 interpreters, people that could interpret for the 7 or 8 guys that were there. And the discussion around the table in Arabic was so vehement that our interpreters weren't interpreting. They were in the discussion, you know. So it would have been really a good time for me to have learned Arabic, but I didn't. But in the middle of that, then one woman, and I don't have pictures, Cindy had the camera, so that's why I had pictures of her instead. But one woman talked to us and she said, you know, if an Israeli came here, I would tell him it is not enough to come here and see. It is, what will you do about it? What will you do when you go back home? And so then the discussion went on for a little while, and then I stopped it through a interpreter, and I said, you know, we're not Israeli. We've got one Canadian, the rest of us are from the US. There are a couple of Israelis that are in the larger group, but not with us here in the small group. I said, but the US, you know, any child over the age of 4 in the Gaza Strip can pick up a piece of spent munition and it'll say made in the US on it. They all can point to it. They all know where this comes from about the time they can walk. So I said, what would you do? We come from the US. What would you tell us to do? And she just stopped and she turned to each one of us and said, what will you do when you go back home? And she waited. She waited until we answered her and said what we're going to do, each and every one of us. Well, she went down through that. So that sort of is the message I have for all of you. You heard from the people from the West Bank. You heard from Lama from Gaza. And of course, she's dear to my heart, both for where she's from and just her spirit. Her spirit is here. Her spirit is huge. Her dreams are huge. But she's locked up in the world's largest outside jail. And we need to do something about that. Luckily, I've got some suggestions for you. So I would like you, one of the first things to do, we've talked about it, we need to keep talking at a grassroots level. We need to educate on this, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. But if we want to change policy, we need to also be talking to our government because that policy starts here. So you also need to get in and start lobbying your Congress. And I'd like you to talk about to them about H.R. 2407. That was introduced by Betty McCollum of St. Paul, Minnesota. We've heard her speak, and she understands this issue. She's very dedicated to this issue, and she has this bill in that you can read easily online, promoting human rights for Palestinian children. And the operative part of that bill, the main operative part of that bill, is that it says U.S. funds that go to a foreign military cannot be used to put children in jail. Seems like a no-brainer. But it's not getting a whole lot of backing in Congress. Now, it does have preambles that say we know what's going on in Israel and what the Israelis are doing to Palestinian children. And it is awful what they're doing. But what this would impact any child anywhere in the world if U.S. funds are being used by a foreign military to lock them up. I want to say something that I'm kind of I don't know if proud's the right word, except I'm really happy about. Cindy read yesterday that the Reconstructionist Rabbinical Council has come out with a letter in favor, backing this, clap, right, H.R. 2407. And I feel particularly great about that because Seth Goldstein, it seems, he's the rabbi in Olympia, and he is right now the president of that council. So it's pretty cool. I know somebody that's done that, and I know his journey and the work he's done and what a friend he is for us, but it ain't easy for him. So I'm really proud that he came out on that one. And you can all back it too. So when you do a little lobbying, don't just call or write, call and write, but then keep going back because you need to be there. You need to be there over and over and over again until they get to know you. And so if you go to your state legislature now, you're kind of inoculating them against what may happen later. And I think it's well worth doing. So I'd ask you to do those two things. And then the other thing, there are people here in this room that can facilitate with Tree of Life traveling to Palestine. And I thought it was impossible until my daughter did it. And then people saying, you've got to come here and see it. And I don't know how many times we've been to the West Bank now. We've been to Gaza, as I said, 5 times. But you need to go there. You need to go and see what's going on, but you need to go and meet a few more people. Eat some makluba, drink some tea, find out about the over-the-top sort of hospitality that you will get in Palestine, and then come back and talk authoritatively to your friends, neighbors, members of Congress about this issue. Thank you.
Now a moment of irony. The Veneto Regional Council, which is located on Venice, Italy's Grand Canal, was flooded for the first time in its history on Tuesday night. just after it rejected measures to combat climate change. On a very cold night in New Haven, dozens of people turned out to send a climate message to incoming Mayor Elicker.
No justice, no peace. Emissions must cease.
I'm Adrienne Huck. I'll be your MC for today, and I'm a high school senior at Metropolitan Business Academy in New Haven, and I work with New Haven Climate Movement. So this rally is to broaden our climate justice movement, and it's hosted by Sunrise Movement, New Haven Climate Movement, and joined by many other great organizations in this area that are doing a lot of awesome grassroots work. So without further ado, let's get into our agenda. So first up, we'll have from DSA Eco-Socialists, Alex Kolokotronis. Please come to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. How many of you are ready for a Green New Deal? Yeah. Great, that's exactly what I want to hear. Again, as I was introduced, my name is Alexander Kolokotronis. I'm with DSA Eco-Socialism, and we're all about a Green New Deal. But specifically, a Green New Deal based on these 7 points. Decarbonizing the economy fully by 2030. Democratizing control over major energy systems and resources. Center the working class in a just transition. Decommodifying our survival. Reinventing our communities to serve people and planet, not profit. Demilitarize, decolonize, and strive for a future of international solidarity and cooperation. And finally, redistribute resources from the worst polluters. And so us at DSA Eco-Socialism here in Central Connecticut ask, why can't we start that here right now? Why wait until 2020 when hopefully Bernie Sanders gets elected president? Why not start now? And where can we get the resources? Right over there. Right here, we have Yale University, second wealthiest university here in the country. Why can't we redistribute some of these resources right here in New Haven to start right now with a Green New Deal? And where can we start? We can start with housing, we can start with energy, and we can start with jobs. We right now are in the midst of an affordable housing crisis here in New Haven. We're seeing rents just a block away, upward of $3,000 for 1,000 square foot apartments.
Thank you, Alex. Can we get a planet over profit?
Planet over profit.
Can I get a Green New Deal?
Green New Deal.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing up affordable housing.
While Yale makes money from dirty energy, the same seas that rise in Puerto Rico also threatens homes and infrastructure in this city and others up and down the Connecticut coast. And while Yale trumpets its pioneering climate science, it deprives this city of the resources to make a just transition to a sustainable and equitable future.
And my name is Shayla Peterson. I'm a junior and leader in climate activism at Southern Connecticut State University. I am here to represent the commitment that Southern has made to addressing the climate emergency and to ask Mayor-elect Justin Elicker to join us in this pressing matter. As many of you already know, the New Haven Board of Alders has already got the ball rolling in terms of climate action with their climate emergency resolution. This resolution, made in September of this year, states that a climate emergency mobilization task force will be formed when the resolution is supported by our city leaders within 120 days of its creation. I wish to take this moment to clarify Justin Elicker's role in this resolution as New Haven's mayor-elect. Elicker must show his commitment to climate action by signing on to the climate emergency resolution within this 120-day time frame. Finally, we request that the Board of Alders specifically commit 0.1% of the city budget to critical climate action.
Yes, my name is John Lugo from Unidad Latina en Acción. Our group is made up of hundreds of families that have to leave their countries because of the economic policies that originated in this country and or other third world countries. Many are displaced by the ambition of corporations that are making a second colonization to provide raw materials to maintain the living standards that are leading to the destruction of the planet. We're gathered here to demand that the new administration of this city make the environment of top priority. We applaud the resolution passed by the Board of Aldermen of the climate emergency, but resolutions are only words, printed on paper that will end up in the garbage, polluting more. A climate emergency policy calls for investments and real numbers to make the necessary changes for New Haven to lead regionally and nationally in terms of reducing carbon dioxide emissions, to create green jobs. And let me give you an example. Around the city of New Haven, we have a lot of empty land. We have lawns that produce nothing but grass, another ecological problem. At the same time, we have thousands of migrants, peasants, who before moving here to the United States, they used to live in their own farms. And they used to grow their own food without chemicals. Why not offer jobs to them? To those who have experience farming the land, so that the food consumed in this city can be produced locally.
Good afternoon, friends. I'm here to say that we've been asking the wrong question. And I want you to think of the last time you saw a journalist ask a politician about climate change, and what question do they usually ask? Do you believe in climate change? And I'm here as a minister to tell you that believe is the wrong word. The question should be, do you understand climate science? The question should be, do you understand that communities of color and the marginalized will be the most affected by this climate crisis? Do you understand that climate crisis is also climate genocide?
No justice,
No peace. Emissions must cease. No justice, no peace. Emissions must cease.
To end on a positive note, Europe's largest public bank has announced it will no longer invest in fossil fuel projects. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.